The Louie T Network is powered by MusicHead University. MusicHeads, classes in session. Turn me up. Enroll on YouTube now. Link is in the description. Who else could it be but me? You're me, Louie T. Welcome to the command post. You know what it is. Post up. Take command. I, of course, am your commander-in-chief, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. So this is going to be a quick show. I wasn't looking to talk you to death. I told you guys yesterday that I was going to come at you with a quick video. Decided to just jump on and do it live. So apparently they're going to play starters in this game, is my understanding. It's going to be sparse, and it's going to be a few guys here and there. My guess is that we'll probably see some of the younger offensive linemen. So Cosme probably plays. You probably get Sadiq Charles out there. I don't think you're going to see Nick Gates at all. I don't think you're going to see Andrew Wiley at all. I don't think you're going to see Charles Leno. I know you're not going to see Charles Leno at all. So my guess is the two guards are going to play, and you're going to get Cornelius Lucas at left tackle, Trenton Scott at right tackle, and you're probably going to get Tyler Larson at center to start the game off in front of Jacoby Brissett. After Brissett leaves the game, you'll probably see Cosme and Charles leave the game, and Ricky Stromberg and probably Montero, Aaron Montero probably come into the game, and then you'll probably start to see them I think probably you'll see Cornelius Lucas leave the game as well. Trenton Scott shifts over to left tackle, and you'll probably get the rookie, and he'll probably play the remainder of the game. You'll probably get Brendan Daniels playing the remainder of the game along with Ricky Stromberg. That offensive line, Ken Blue will probably get in there as well. They'll probably get Ricky Stromberg. Now, he probably needs to work. They'll probably just leave Ricky out there more likely than not. So they'll shuffle it around. But I think you're going to get – so apparently we're getting Jacoby Brissett for like a quarter and a half, I think is what they said. So it'll be 2.5 quarters or so roughly of Jake Fromm. And you won't see any of the receivers. You won't see any of the running backs. You may see Cole Turner and John Bates. You'll see Bates. Probably see Turner. If I were them, you wouldn't get Turner at all. I wouldn't even put him out there. You could get a little bit of Bates. Honestly, I think they have enough tight ends on the roster. You would get all of the Curtis Hodges. You could stand the dude that we got from Minnesota. I think there's 3 other tight ends on the roster right now. They would be getting all the work. You wouldn't see Bates. You wouldn't see Turner at all in this game. That would be me. That just would be how I would operate. But we'll see what they decide to do. Defensively, you're not going to see anybody. We just like you didn't see just about anyone against the Ravens. I don't even think you're going to see Emmanuel Forbes or the linebackers out there in this game. I think it's going to be all 11 backup players, and that'll be that. So as far as the game is concerned, it's not going to be, it's what you expect from the final preseason game. Like let's keep it in its proper perspective. Now, there still are things on the line, right? Like we still have some undecided back end of the roster positions up for grabs. So I'm going to pose this question to you. I'm going to answer it after I pose it to you. But while I'm posing this question to you, I feel like you guys can go ahead and start lining up comments in the comment section. Use the hashtag LouieTLive to have your comment read on the air very quickly. And who do you think stands to be the biggest winner with a solid performance in week 3? Who do you think stands to gain the most with a solid performance in week 3 versus the Cincinnati Bengals? All right. So what I'm essentially asking you is who can earn a roster spot tomorrow night with a good performance? All right. So, and I'm just looking for one guy. All right, who do you think is the player that most benefits from a good performance on Saturday night to put an exclamation point on training camp, the preseason, and give themselves the best opportunity to make the football team? I just want one player from you of all the guys that are in the mix. And there are several names that you can throw out that would make a ton of sense. Put it down in the comment section. Use the hashtag LouieTLive. If you want to say more, if you just want to put the person's name, put it down there, and I can see who you're talking about, and we can talk about it. So for me, I think the guy that absolutely has to have a really, I don't want to call it a big game, but it'd be nice. My thing is, when you're trying to make an NFL roster, leave no doubt. Leave no doubt. Don't leave it to chance. Don't leave them wondering. Leave no doubt. The guy that I feel like needs to leave no doubt is Kazmir Allen, because I think they've gotten a taste of what he can do, but I don't think it's enough yet. And I don't know how severe this Dax Milne injury is. I really am fascinated with that whole dynamic, because we could find out on Sunday, afternoon, that they put Dax Milne on IR, and that would essentially cinch a roster spot for a guy like Kazmir Allen. However, if Dax is going to be fine, if it's something minor and they feel like Dax could play, if we had a game next week, then I still think Dax is right there in the mix. So, and there's still this debate, 6 versus 7 at the receiver position. I am totally fascinated with that dynamic and what they ultimately will decide to do. The last time I was this interested in what they were doing at receiver, they kept 7. Okay. The last time I was this invested in the receiver position as to what they were going to do, they kept 7. They surprised me because I thought 7 was too much, and they did it anyway. So nothing's out of bounds. Everything's on the table. But if you're Kazmir Allen, you got to make it so that they can't go into the season without you in their minds. And so to me, he needs to be returning everything. He can't have any muff punts. He can't have any poor decisions, because really what it comes down to is punts. Kickoffs, that's not what's going to ultimately have him make the squad, because they know he can do that. All right, he's done it at college. We know he's prolific in that regard. You rarely bring out kicks in the NFL anymore anyway, so that's not what's going to get him onto the roster. It's punt return that's ultimately going to get him a roster spot, and he's going to have to make every right decision. So if it's supposed to be fielded, field it. If you're supposed to call for a fair catch it. If you're supposed to let it go, let it go. If you're supposed to return it, return it. But make sure you're getting up the field. You're not dancing around. You're not running backwards. You're not making a beeline for out of bounds. Like, show them why they need to keep you on the roster as a return specialist. It would help if he catches the ball well in this game. That's something that he struggled a bit with throughout camp. I thought he did a solid job against the Ravens, especially on that final drive of the game, of catching the football. That can help, because he's another guy that if he's on the roster, you can insert him in the game in a random spot and just get him a touch. They did it in the first preseason game where they tried to throw him a bubble screen and or a tunnel screen rather. And so I could easily see him being one of those guys they just throw in the game and get him a touch or two out of the blue. So, because he's that dynamic when he touches the football. So again, he's just got to show the ability to return punts. We know what he can do on kickoffs, catch the football when they throw it to him in the pass game, if he's in the game, and just leave no doubt in this game. All right. I think he's the guy with the most to gain. You could also look at the cornerback position. I'm going to go to the comment section, and if nobody names any of these players, then I'll bring them up. So let's see. Robert Dooley says Rodriguez. Mike Lowry says Andre Jones. Andre Jones doesn't, to me, he doesn't need to have a big game. He's already got a roster spot locked up. Now, he just needs to go out and play his game. He'll be playing against backups. Go out there and show exactly why they've been so smitten with you this preseason and training camp. And just, again, you don't even have to put an exclamation point. Just put a period. at the end of what has been an impressive camp for him, right? Rodriguez, again, another guy that's definitely making the football team. He doesn't have to go out and put an exclamation point on a performance tonight. He just needs to put a period. Don't fumble the ball, right? That's not what they want to see. Obviously, you had one last game. Take care of the rock, but just continue to run hard. If I had to guess, I'd say he's the leading rusher in the preseason right now for us through 2 games. Just continue to go out there, run hard, do the things that got you to this point. Hold on to the rock, and he'll be fine. He doesn't have to do anything special. Ms. Perry says, Pringle. I don't think he has to do much either. Again, I after the big catch down the sidelines in preseason game number 1, that was his exclamation point. I can play special teams. I can return kickoffs. I know EB's system. I'm a jack of all trades. I can run fast. I got some size. He checks off every box that Ron talked about when he said those guys on the back end at the receiver position, what they were looking for in those back end receiver guys. He checks off every single box. As far as I'm concerned, Byron Pringle is already on this team. He's wide receiver 5. But again, don't go out here dropping passes and with the lackluster performance. Just a period. Just a period for Byron Pringle. Charles, the farming guy, says that running back Rodriguez, again, he's going to be on the football team. Let's see. Tommy T says Tinsley. I don't think he can make the team at this point, but again, that's a good one because it's up to him to make it a tough decision on the staff. I don't see a way in which he cracks the roster. And it has nothing to do with the Ravens game. I think it has everything to do with the other guys around and the fact that he doesn't play special teams. Like, he can play special teams, but that's not something he did in college. It's not something that he's adept at. He's not a speed demon. They're looking for speed on the back end of the roster. I don't think he checks off the boxes this year. Next year, he may be a viable candidate to make the football team. So we'll see what happens. Need for the Blaze, that punt returner you're talking about, Kaz Allen. Josh Denton says Alex Arma. You know what? That's not a bad one. I expect him to play tonight, and I expect him to play a ton tonight. And what would be nice is for him to show the staff one final time that you need me on this roster. Look, there's not much he can do that Ron Rivera isn't already fully aware of him being able to do. Ron Rivera had him back in Carolina, so it's not like he's not well versed in the Alex Arma spectrum of what he brings to the table. So I don't know if there's much that Alex Arma can truly do that's going to, make Ron Rivera and the staff go, oh my God. I mean, maybe EB, maybe some of the guys that aren't as familiar with Alex Arma, but Ron knows what Alex Arma brings to the table. So I don't think there's much he can do, but yeah, that's not a bad one. Humble King says Stromberg, he's making the team. He's making the team. Let's see. Todd Labor says Chris Rodriguez needs to step up in this game big time, in my opinion. Adam says, looks like Casimir is going to be handed the job. It's his to lose, I believe. Going into this game, especially if Dax has a significant groin injury, we don't know the severity of it. Ron never really went into specifics with it, which is fine. This is his opportunity to really put a stranglehold on it. Redsican says, is David Mayo really making the squad? Yes, he is. I mean, why are you surprised? Why do you sound appalled and disappointed? This is a Ron Rivera staple. It's a guy they trust. He plays. He's a core special teamer. When you need him in a pinch down by the goal line, when you're looking to put your heavy defensive package in there with a bunch of defensive linemen and linebackers, Mayo's a guy that can come in there and be physical as a hammer to stop the run. Yeah, he's making the team. They haven't done anything to obstruct him from making the team. Had they brought in another linebacker, you would think, well, maybe he could be in trouble, but they haven't. So, yeah, he's going to be in. Brian says, wow, Goose, if he even has a shot at all. Do have a super chat, so let me go ahead and take this. Video channel. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, Mason Brooks on the 53. Ooh. That's a good one, video channel. Nobody mentioned Mason Brooks. I would put him in that same category with Kaz Allen. Like a strong performance tonight from Mason Brooks coupled. Now, I think he has to have help. Okay. I don't think he's a guy that just wins and he's in, right? If we were going with the analogy of, the final 2 games of the regular season, you controlling your own outcome of your season. If you just win, you're in. Kaz Allen, to me, win and you're in. Go out, play well, and you're on the team. Mason Brooks needs to win out, and then he needs some help. Okay, so he needs to play well tonight, and then he needs someone else that's right there on the cusp to not play well or to get injured. And I know that's not something that you want to hear nor that you wish for, but if you're Mason Brooks, that's essentially what you need to have happen. You need someone to either play really, really badly to the point where the staff is turned off by the idea of that player being on the team, or you need somebody to go down to injury to open up an opportunity for you. I think he's a long shot at this point. He'll need a lot of things to go right for him to make the team. However, a strong performance will, again, give them pause and make them think, hey, is this a guy that we can afford to cut? They really like Mason Brooks, and he's shown some good things this camp, but he's got a long way to go. He's a developmental prospect, but that's a good name, Video Channel. That's the kind of name that I was looking for when we're talking about this particular exercise. He's the kind of guy with it could stand to gain the most with a huge performance. That's a good one. Let's see. Brian says Wild Goose, if he even has a shot at all. He does. No, Wild Goose is another good name, Brian. Like Rashad Wild Goose with a strong performance could whittle his way back on to this roster. I thought that going into the Ravens game, he was right there in the mix. You could even argue he was penciled in as CB5. And then he played so poorly. I think they erased his name and they put Christian Holmes' name back in there at CB5. But, all bets are off. He goes out there, has a pick tonight, plays outstanding special teams. Who knows? Rashad Wild Goose could be right back in the mix. Red Wing 01 says Kaz and Dax. I don't even know. I don't think Dax is playing. We'll see. Dax could be just fine, but didn't practice. That's never a good sign. He didn't practice and it was a walkthrough, and he didn't practice on Wednesday. So that leads me to believe that he's not going to play in this game, but we'll see. LB81 says Quan has shown nothing to warrant the second-round pick. I think some of you are really hard on the young fella. If they would have just given Quan one task and asked him to do that, I think he'd be fine. But they've thrown the kitchen sink at him. I mean, it's tough. I always like to give the analogy of you start a job your first day and, your first week, whatever the case may be, and they come in and they literally dump, 2 years worth of knowledge on you at once, and you're supposed to retain all of this information. It's not easy to do. Mistakes will be made. JBWC says Hodges can't even dunk a basketball with his 6'8" self. 1-6 Devil Doc. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Y'all know what it is. Stand up. We in the building. Been a member for 24 months, 2 years. A bow to you, sir. What up, Lou? What's going on? 1-6 Devil Doc says, hope you and the fam are doing well. I think they'll put Brooks and Daniels on IR sometime after Saturday's game for a sprained ankle or a hangnail, LOL. Maybe Henry as well. That's the move. Those guys better not even lead a game with a slight cough. Like if they come into the locker room and KJ Henry's like, we'll find out he was put on IR with bronchitis, okay? Like, don't give them any out because they'll take it. All right, I remember like 4 years ago, Cam Sims had a barely sprained ankle. Like, he could have played in like 2 weeks, and they put him on IR. And we know the trick. We know the move. We know we've seen it before. So any little slight twinge, and you're going to IR if they think they could lose you and they don't want to risk losing you. So you better come out of this game completely healthy. If not, You're not wrong. You are absolutely spot on. Some guys are going to find their way to IR for sure, right? So we'll see what happens. That's a really good one. Let's see. Red Wing 01 says KJ Henry. Again, that's another good one. And he's not guaranteed to be on the roster. I didn't put him on my 53-man roster, but I know they want to keep him. So give them a reason to keep you, right? That's a really good one. That's another name that should be on the list. If we're making a short list of guys that absolutely needs to go out and play really well to warrant being on the 53-man roster, I think he's going to ultimately make it, though. I didn't put him on my list because I don't think he deserves to be on the list. But ultimately, I think they're going to keep him for fearing of losing him. And I just think that's dumb because if you lose him, you lose him. You know, you traded up to get him, and I think they just feel like we invested too much to go up and get him. We're not just going to allow him to be, poached by another team. But I'm looking for guys that can help right now. If he can't help right now, he's a 5th-round pick. It's not like this guy came in and set the world on fire. He may develop into a basic, backup edge rusher. I can't see him, turning into anything more than that. If they, fear that they're going to lose him and they want to continue to work with him, go right ahead, be my guest. I would need to see something that would lead me to feel comfortable keeping him on the 53-man roster. Otherwise, I'd love to have you on the practice squad. That's how I would operate with KJ Henry. So I think he's right on that list of guys that needs to play really well tonight, or tomorrow night, rather. Excuse me. Let's see. Red Ball Mander says Braden, the O-lineman. Absolutely. I don't have him on my 53-man roster either. So just full disclosure, I went back and watched him in the Ravens game. He wasn't half bad. He wasn't half bad in the Ravens game. Still a ton of work to be done. Still don't think he can help you. Not a guy that you would feel comfortable putting on the field. Again, if they want him on the roster and they add him to the roster, as long as they don't take Trenton Scott off at his expense, I'm all for it. Knock yourself out. I wouldn't do it personally because, again, even adding him without taking Trenton Scott off and making it 11 offensive linemen means you're taking off a guy somewhere else that could actually help this team this upcoming season. Again, if you think you can get a guy on the practice squad that can help you this year and you don't think anybody's going to snatch him up, then do that. Because you can always pull that player up to the active roster on game day. So it's not a big deal. So again, it's all about playing the numbers game and figuring out who you can sneak onto the practice squad and who you can't. And if you don't think you can get Braden Daniels onto the practice squad and you don't want to cut him and risk it, I get it. Just make sure the guy that you cut at his expense is a guy that you can definitely get onto the practice squad, because what I don't want to see them do is cut a player that can actually help this team this year in any capacity. I don't give a damn if it's special teams, for a guy in Braden Daniels who can't help us at all. That would really be frustrating. To me, that would be cause for Rivera and company to be ousted at season's end if things don't work. I mean, if they're really close and things don't work. These are some of the type of reasons I would look to and point to, especially if injuries start to take effect and you cut a guy that got picked up by somebody else that could have been here and helped us. That's when you start looking and saying, see, I told you. So we'll see what happens. Red Wing says, I think they've already made their minds up on Arma, which is why he didn't play too much last time. I think you're right, which is what I fear with him and Marcus Kemp. And generally, when you don't play a guy, you've made up your mind, and it can go one of two ways. Either we've seen enough, you're good, or I don't want to expose you to the rest of the league because I'm going to cut you, and I want you back on the practice squad, which is what I think could be more likely for those two individuals in particular. Marcus Kemp almost made a hell of a catch, and then he barely saw the field against the Ravens. In my mind, I'm thinking they see him as a core special teamer. They see him as a guy with some size. They see him with some catching ability. They see a lot in him. Core special teamer. Don't want to risk losing him. I think they may have Alex Arma in that same category. I'm gonna go down guns a-blazing with Alex Arma, though. I'm gonna die on that hill. If he doesn't make it, so be it. But I'm going to go down with Alex Armour being on my final 53-man roster. Kareem Wilson says Gore. I don't think he can make the team, but he's actually run well. Like, I've been impressed with him in the 2 preseason games. He's actually run really well, but unfortunately, I just don't see any way he can crack the 53-man roster. Metaphor writes, Castro Fields to step up and get that DB spot. Yeah, Castro Fields is another name that, I guess I was so disappointed that he didn't play sooner last game. I think they put the guys out there early that they really wanted to see something from. That's why I really feel like Rashad Wildgoose really let them down last week. They really put him in the game early against the Ravens, second string. They wanted him in there before the Ravens kind of offloaded their entire bench and dumped those third stringers into the game. They really wanted to see what he was going to do against Josh Johnson and that second string and some of those guys that, they felt like probably going to end up being in the league somewhere, if not in Baltimore. And he didn't fare well. He didn't fare well at all. And so I think he really dropped the ball last week. That's why I think Castro Fields isn't in favor right now, because he wasn't in those situations last week. But we'll see what happens. Red Wings says Milo Eifler and Dejon Harris need to play well enough to justify a 5th linebacker spot. I don't think they're going to keep 5 linebackers. With all of the different decisions they have to make, with the offensive line wanting to keep Braden Daniels, with the defensive line wanting to keep KJ Henry, you can't afford to keep a 5th linebacker. If you're going to keep 11 defensive linemen or 11 offensive linemen, you can't keep a 5th linebacker. If you're going to keep a 7th wide receiver, you can't keep a 5th linebacker. Like, these are decisions that they have to make, clearly. But if you're going to go heavy at one of these positions or both, linebacker is definitely where you trim off fat and stay lean at. 4 is enough for them, and I think that's where they'll remain. But you're right. If those guys make it tough on them. B. Wright says Hudson is a game time baller. He shines in games, not practice. Have you really heard anything from him in the 2 preseason games, though? Let's see. Mike Lowry says Khalid Hudson has disappointed me this preseason. I thought he would step up with Cole gone. And again, he's going to make the team, and he'll be fine. And if he gets an opportunity, I don't doubt that he'll step in and play well. Red Wings also says Patterson. I don't see it happening, but brings that scat back element that you don't get with the other guys, which is why I'm kind of selfish in not wanting to lose him, but I also want the young fella to get a shot because I think he can play in this league. So we'll see what happens. Anyway, I digress. Said I wasn't going to keep you here all that long. I just wanted to come and tell you who I thought was the guy that stands to gain the most with a solid performance, with a good performance in Saturday's preseason finale. For me, it's Kaz Allen. You guys brought up some really good names of guys that could whittle their way onto the roster. Rashad Wildgoose is a good one. Mason Brooks is intriguing. I think he's going to ultimately end up on the practice squad, however, but that's another name to look out for. Tariq Castro Fields. No one mentioned Christian Holmes. I don't think he's a lock right now. So I would throw Christian Holmes in that mix as well. I think he needs to play well in this game. Somebody mentioned Alex Armour. That's an interesting name. I think there are some, guys that are right there that could definitely help themselves and boost their stock with a performance tonight. KJ Henry is another one. Braden Daniels is another guy. Think about it this way. if Braden Daniels gets beat twice, gives up a sack, forced fumble tonight, do you really think they're going to keep him on the roster? Like, if KJ Henry doesn't do anything tonight, maybe they still keep him anyway. But if Braden Daniels is dominated, are they still going to keep him regardless just because? I don't think so. I think he needs to play well, right? So a number of guys, I think, stand to gain a ton tonight. But I think Kashmir Allen is the one that stands to gain the most. He goes out, he plays well, he fields punts the right way, has a nice return somewhere in the mix. I think he could solidify a roster spot. Even if Dax Milne is on the roster, I think he could still solidify a roster spot. So anyway, I digress. You guys go ahead, get out of here. You'll see me tomorrow night after the game has met its conclusion. See if Washington can remain perfect in the preseason and get the win over the Cincinnati Bengals backups. And we'll chop it up, talk about who performed how and what it means for the potential 53-man roster and so forth and so forth. And then we'll turn our attention to Arizona, which will be really, really, really fun because I know we're all tired of talking about preseason games. So look forward to seeing you on Saturday night. I know we brought these punters to give Tress some rest, but it made me realize Tress era might end in the next couple of years, and I'm not ready. It could end, here shortly, but punters can last. Special teams players in general can last a really long time. So as long as Tress is continuing to do his job at a very high level, I don't think you have anything to worry about. Now, again, this is one of those things that, I talk about. If Ron and company aren't here, the next regime comes in, he could be gone just like that because they could see an older punter making, some really good money. They could find a cheaper option to bring in. They could be like Bill Belichick, who primarily likes left-footed punters because of how the ball comes off of the foot. It's a different spin because it's left-footed. And, they could come in with a philosophical approach as we want a left-footed punter. Tress. Wait, isn't Tress? Yeah, Tress is left-footed. What am I talking about? Never mind. I think Tress is a left-footed punter, if I'm not mistaken. So that wouldn't be something they come in with because Tress, that's part of the allure of Tress I think he is a left-footed punter, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, I digress. Don't get me started on that. I think he's left-footed. If I had to, because I remember, I forgot who was one of the linemen. They were playing a joke on somebody, and he said, "Tress, kick it left-footed," in practice to one of the young guys, and he did. Of course, the young guy didn't know Tress was actually left-footed, so it blew their minds. Like, oh my God, this guy can kick left-footed, like he, like he's really left-footed, Anyway. They play too much. That's what it is. So I think Tress is going to be here for a while is essentially what I'm trying to convey to you. But you never know. When the new regime comes in, nobody's safe. That's essentially what I've been trying to tell you guys, which is why I'm like, hey, don't be so hasty to try to push Ron and Martin and Marty and company out of the door quite yet because you don't know what that is going to mean for some of the guys that we think are still really good players that are here that may not be with the new regime coming in. That's all I'm saying. But again, I say that out of one side of my mouth. The other side says, look, if Ron and company aren't getting it done, I'm not telling you to hold on to them for fearing of getting rid of players. If we need to move on from them, if we have a lackluster season this year, those guys need to be gone. But so don't misconstrue what I'm saying. But anyway, I digress. Oh yeah, Red Ball Manders writes, is Chick Hernandez calling the game? Yes. We're getting, I may watch that game on mute because I'm going to be Litsky anyway, Litsville, USA. I may just watch that game on mute. I can't stand another one of those week one performances, him and B Mitch. So I haven't decided what I'm going to do yet, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. Anyway. You guys are hilarious. Take care. Enjoy the rest of your Friday evening. I look forward to chopping it up with you guys tomorrow night. It'll be late night lit Louie for sure. So you bring yourself and I'll bring the laughs. How about that? Deal? Deal. I'll see you guys tomorrow night. Take care. God bless. And have a good one.